Alright gang, in this video I want to pretty much pick up where we left off last time. What I've got here is I've got a penciled piece of artwork. It's a separate layer, okay, layer pencils over here, background right here. The background is locked. Right now it's currently grayscale, but I'm going to change that pretty soon. Now notice too that my interface setting here, let's make sure this is my workspace here, is set for painting, okay? If you want to follow along or do the kind of stuff that I do here, you want to have it set for painting. That's just the preference that I have. I've also kind of pulled out some palettes that I like to work with and stuff. So we're going to be getting started with this, laying in some basic colors, maybe putting in a little bit of texture for a background. The first thing I'm going to need to do, though, is I need to change the mode of this this piece here. Okay, so that's pretty easy to do. All you got to do is go up to Image, Mode, and then I'm going to go to RGB Color. Okay, now it's going to say black and white, but right now as a grayscale, it doesn't allow me to select colors. Even though there's a color palette over here, you'll notice that my my selections are just a dark gray and a white. Okay, so I need to change those over to RGB. Now, if you're going to later on have this for print, you would you take your RGB document and make it into CMYK. RGB is for web and devices. CMYK, of course, is for print. Red, green, blue, cyan, magenta, yellow, and key or black. Okay. All right. So let's switch over to RGB. It's going to ask you if you want to flatten it. Say don't flatten. And now it's a RGB document. Okay. So as you can see here, suddenly this tone of gray is sort of a brownish color. It's one of the flesh tones that I picked up earlier. Okay, taking a quick look at my palette here, seeing what I have. I've got some. These are mostly standard issue colors. The ones at the top are the ones that have been most recently used. Okay, now what I'm going to do first, I think, is I need to take my pencils here and make the white transparent. And that's going to allow me to paint underneath the pencils. Okay, that way I can kind of see where the pencils are and use the pencils as a guideline for my painting. Okay, so while this layer is selected, I'm going to go up here where it says normal. There's a drop-down menu or pop-up menu if you want to call it that, and I'm going to switch that to multiply. Okay, what that does, it makes the white on the document transparent. So now if I start coloring underneath there, it'll show up, it'll show through. Now the thing is though, I never usually color right on the background. I always work in separate layers. Actually what we're going to do, or what I'm going to do, is most of these figures are going to be on separate layers, most likely. And I think what I'll probably do is color them in pretty much working from the back forward. Okay, so where I'm going to start is with your basic background. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab my background here, which is locked, and I'm going to click down here on Create New Layer. Okay, and let's call this back drop instead of background. That way I know it's different. Okay, and the next thing I want to do is maybe put in just a basic basic color. Now this is going to be for a cover, so I've got pencils gone out to about here, but I think the color I might wind up going even further out because the thing is with the kind of illustration I do, you can see closely here, this is your absolute limit out here, and this is your live area in here. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll bring in a couple of guidelines. Guidelines are easy to pop in Photoshop. All you have to do is, if you have your rulers showing, all you have to do is just go to the side and then just bring these in and down. Okay, so there, that's my live area right there. Okay, that's what I probably want to go to. Just zoomed out a little bit, hitting Control minus. Okay, now to start, I think what I want to do is probably put in a little bit of a gradient. I'm going to have a gradient, but I want to keep it fairly subtle. Okay, so let's go ahead and pick a couple of colors here. I want something fairly dark. Let's see, a dark violet, darker blue violet. Let's try that for one color, and then the other color, let's lighten it up just a touch. Let's go to maybe this. That might be a little too dark. Let's try this here. Okay, let's try that, and then on this layer, we'll just drop in a gradient. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try it diagonally first. That's too much. Gradient. I also might go the other way around. Maybe I'll make a selection first too, so it doesn't do the whole thing. So I'll just use my selection tool. If you haven't gone through the toolbox yet to figure out what's what, you probably want to do that. The great thing about Photoshop too is that if you hover long enough over a tool, it'll tell you what it is. Yeah, there we go. So the lasso tool, the magic wand tool, stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. So now if I put the gradient in, I'll just it'll just go that in this area right here. I think I'm going to switch this around too. So let's just go straight down. Whoops, wrong tool. That's what happens, man. You know, I had the marquee tool still picked. So let's go down like that. Okay. Let's try it back up like that. That might work. Okay, but I think what I'm going to need to do, though, is probably put in another layer in here where I have a little bit more gradient. That's going to be the basic dark of the background. Let's try that just a touch lighter. I'm going to click here and go maybe something like that. Okay, now let's try that again. That's a little bit better. Okay, now the reason that I wanted to do that is I want to have a little bit of texture going on in this backdrop. Okay, so what I'm going to do? Let's see. I've got a couple of things here that I might use. I haven't decided yet to add a little texture. I went to Unsplash and found some creepy trees. Okay, this kind of thing. Now, what I'm really looking at closely is the sort of perspective of the characters, okay? Let me turn this off for a minute so you can see this. As you can see, the perspective point is really low. We're kind of looking up at these guys, okay? So I want to have the sort of tree texture be more or less the same sort of thing, okay? Let's turn that back on, and let's go ahead and let's grab this one. Yeah, that one's pretty simple. Now what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to, I think I'm going to make it into a brush. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a select all. Okay, now if you've never done a brush before, it's really pretty simple to use. Okay, it really is. I'm going to do a select all here, and then what I'm going to do is go to, let's see, is it, Oh, I should remember where this is at. Oh, yeah, okay. Let's pause. Okay, sorry about that. I had a slight interruption. Dogs, you know. Okay, now we had just selected this thing. We were going to create a brush out of it. Okay, now the next step with that is we're going to go to New, File, New, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a new document that's about, well, we'll just make it about 1,000 by 1,000 pixels. So 1,000 by 1,000. Create. Okay, and then what we're going to do is double check our document here and make sure that we've got it copied. I think I did copy it, but I'll copy it again anyway. Oh, and while I'm at it, I'm going to close that one up because it's kind of in my way and I don't need it. I'm going to go back to this thing, and then we're going to edit, paste. Okay, now it's really huge, and that's not a really big deal. All you got to do is do a free transform. Zoom out a little bit, and then just take this down to about that size there. That ought to do it. Okay, that'll work pretty well. Now the thing is with this brush, I can adjust the size later on when I'm actually using it. Okay. Now the thing is too, you may not want to use a brush. You know, you might want to just create a new sort of background out of this thing. But I like just being able to use a brush and load it up with load it into my thing where it's just kind of a really simple sort of symbol thing. It makes it easier to work with and makes it not so much like using a photograph. Okay. Now, once I have this done, I'm going to do a select all and then make sure that this is loaded with black and white right there. And I should be able to define brush preset. And sample brush number 1, I'm going to call this Woods Brush 1. Okay. And there you can see it's now a brush. Okay. Now I can go back to this. Now you can see that it's not huge. That's not a big deal. But I can actually take the size way up to where it'll just about fill up what I need to do here. Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's even a little big right there. So let's take it down to things kind of jump a little bit. That looks about right. Now notice that we still have our marquee area selected. Okay. Now I don't know that I especially want to have this be on the same layer as my color. I think for now I might pop in a new layer right there, and we'll go ahead. This should be black right here. Let's make sure this is centered about right. Let's put it up a little bit, and boom. Hit that once, and there we go. That's kind of cool. Okay. Notice that it only filled in where that where the selected area was. Okay. Now this brush is kind of freaking my computer out a little bit. It's doing a little weird thing. You can see here too that I've created other brushes as well, different times. I'm going to go back on my my hard round brush and take it back down to my usual size, which is right around 5 or 6. About there. Okay. That's what I'm usually comfortable with. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and deselect. Now that I've got that done, I can take this layer. I think I'm just going to combine these layers and just keep it as a backdrop. I think that'll probably work. I like the way it looks pretty well. Let me just take the pencils off here and see what that looks like. That's pretty cool. I kind of dig that. Okay. So let's go ahead and take this, and we're going to, I'm just going to hit Control E, and there. Now that is one layer, the backdrop right there. Okay, cool. All right, now let's start adding in some color to these guys here. I'm taking the opacity of the backdrop layer down a little bit so I can see where these guys are. Okay, now what we're going to do in this tutorial, we're not going to get into a lot of the painting stuff because that's later. We're just going to lay in some blocks of color. Okay, just some basic stuff. Okay, so let's go back to our layers palette. We're going to create a new layer, and I'm going to start off with this this Egyptian priest guy. So we'll call him Priest. Okay, actually, let's call him High Priest. There we go. All right, and now here's the thing with doing digital color. One thing that I do, and this may seem a little bit strange, I'm gonna get rid of that. No. Is I actually will set up little maquettes, little figures that I use to make sure that like the the perspective and proportions are correct. Okay. Also, this is useful in coloring and stuff too. So I've got several images here. This is a little mummy. These guys are about 8 inches tall. They're pretty small. These are where I base some of the figures on. So I'm going to grab this guy right here, and I'm going to pick a base color for this High Priest guy. Right about there, kind of an orange there. Okay. And then I'm going to go back here and zoom in a little bit here, and I'm going to start just penciling in some basic color here. So I'm going to use the pencil tool. Okay. Now you can see here this has a 23 pixel lead right now, and the hardness is at 100%. You want it set at that. I'm going to take the size down to about 14, about halfway or so, and then I'm just going to draw in really quick, really roughly a base color. Now notice that because my pencils are set as multiply, everything is pretty much transparent. Again, I'm doing just kind of quickly. That's the way you typically do it. Now, I'm not going to have these overlap. I'm not going to have this character have the color go beneath this guy. The reason that I'm keeping them separate right now is so I can make adjustments as I go if I want. Okay, and then once I have that part done, I'll click on my paint bucket tool and just drop in a basic color right there. Okay, that'll be my base color for that guy. I can add light and dark as I go. As a matter of fact, all I'd have to do is just, whoop, wrong one. Pop back over here, take a color sample of like this area here, and then start laying in more of the shaded colors and stuff like that. Okay, I know it sounds crazy having little figures and stuff like that, but let me tell you, when it really helps. Doing stuff like this. I actually spend a lot of time, more than I should, making little outfits and all that. Yeah, it's kind of nuts, but hey, whatever works, right? All right, next let's go with this mummy guy, this hideous little freak. All right, so let's take a color sample right there. There's a bit more red. And so we'll go back here and let's make another layer. We'll call this just mummy. he has a name, but uh, I'm not sold on the name just yet. All right, and I'm gonna start penciling in. Now you might wonder, okay, why are you using the pencil tool and not the paintbrush tool? Okay, the reason for that is the pencil tool, when you're laying in blocks of color, the pencil tool has this very sort of, you can see here, very sort of pixely looking edge. Okay, now you usually don't want that in a painting, right? But that's going to get obliterated later on. Okay, what this edge does is it allows for the paintbrush tool to go in there and drop in color um, that isn't that isn't going to have a feathered edge to deal with. Okay, so let me show you. Let me just drop in the this basic color right here. Let me show you what happens if I decide to if I decide to use a paintbrush instead. So let's go ahead and click on a paintbrush. We've got a small paintbrush right there. We'll go ahead and click on. I'm going to click on the color there. It looks like I clicked on the whites of his eyes, but they're actually, it's kind of gray. So I got my paintbrush tool, and let's just draw in just a circle right there. Okay. Then if I hit my tool right there, notice the difference there. Okay. Notice the feathering along the edges, which I don't want. So let me go back to my history brush here. We'll take away that bit. We'll go back in with the pencil and just lay in some base color right there and right there, and then paint bucket, paint bucket. See, perfect, no problem at all. You know, while I'm at it, I have this color loaded. I'm going to go ahead and drop in some real quick base color for the teeth, something like that. And again, this is just the base color. Now, a little bit of a lag going on there. That happens sometimes with happens sometimes when you're using a tablet and a stylus, which I assume a lot of you will be using. Okay, like I said, these are the base colors. I'll go in and add a lot more nuance later on. Okay, next we've got this guy here. Let's see, and again, this is just a silly little action figure. There's gonna be a lot of gray up here, you know, right up in there. But I'm gonna sample one of the lighter colors right about there for a basic flesh tone. The other guy is, you know, covered in gold paint. This one's kind of gnarly and shriveled up and stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and with this guy. Whoops, you know, I need to make a new layer. I almost forgot about that. This guy, we'll just call him Dude. Because to be honest, don't really I don't really have his name quite down yet. This is just kind of a vague idea, you know, that I have going. Right now, I'm deeply into working on a graphic novel that is not this. And to be honest, that graphic novel is kind of special, and I'm not sure I want to do digital painting for the cover of that. Okay, so we got that basic color knocked in. I'm actually going to move this guy behind the mummy so they're in the correct order. That way, if I slop a little bit with his hair, it's not going to matter that much. It'll be behind the mummy. So let's go back to this guy. Let's grab a little bit of that gray there. Maybe a little bit lighter. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, whatever. And we'll just block in some, most of it's pretty dark. I'm going to have to go in and put in some little lighter areas and stuff too. And that's one thing too that, I'm just thinking about this. Sometimes you have to make variations. I'll be putting in a lot of highlights along this edge along here. But not right now. Right now I'm just laying in blocks of color. So let's pop that in there and pop that in there. Now if I wanted to go ahead and pop in some basic like color of the teeth and stuff like that, I can do that. As a matter of fact, because this color is trapped in here, I could probably just hit it like that. There we go. Now what I'll have to go in is add some little bits of white and stuff like that eventually. Let's go ahead and grab a little bit of gray there. Make sure it's pretty much what I want. And then, whoops, wrong tool. Actually, I could just use the paintbrush tool for that, but it doesn't cover as much of an area. There, just blocking in basic colors again. Okay. Basic color blocks. Let's see. So we've got those guys going on. Let's go ahead and while I'm at it, let's just grab a little bit of that dark red right there. Again, these are base colors, so like this shade of red, there's probably not going to be a ton of this at the very end, but I'm just using it as just a place marker. So there's that. I'll probably use a lot lighter through here. Let's go ahead and like where there's the white shirt, okay, that's really actually blue. So you want to be aware of this kind of thing in order to, if you just use the colors that you think they are, okay, that's when you might run into problems. So you want to actually either use some sort of photographic reference that you can find at Unsplash or any sort of stock stock photo place. There, gotta go a little bit higher there. Whoops. There we go. Because it really is a good idea to get even if it's just a little doll like this or something like that, to have some actual color, okay, that really helps a lot. So I just blocked in a little bit of that this shade through here. Actually, I'm going to put in just a little bit more right through here. There. As silly as it may seem, it really does work. Okay, this is actually pretty dark up in here, so okay, I think we're pretty safe there. We can almost use it as a black. Now, what I'm eventually going to do as well is probably have these guys fade off a little bit in the. I'm going to have them fade off as the as the in the same way the gradient is changing. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a sample of this kind of gray through here. I'm having a hard time getting a sample of that because this is kind of a silver, but that's okay. We'll just, there, that color will work. And we'll just, there's not going to be a lot of this this color showing because they're going to fade off right about in there. It's got a very light blue, almost point of being white. Yeah, a little too much reflection going on here. You can, boy, almost every color I'm getting is sort of inaccurate. That's okay. We'll just very light blue. Okay. Then we'll just put in a little bit of color through here. That's way too light. There we go. And eventually what we'll do, what I'll wind up doing is having this this color fade out to that lighter, the actual color. And we'll just, like I said, just blocking it in for now. The same thing. We should probably go back through and put in some block color for the mummy. So let's go ahead and we'll grab both of these right here. Grab that shade right there and this shade right there. We'll use both of those and just do a quick. We'll start off with, whoops, do that. Let's make sure we got the right guy selected. Go back in with this. Lock in our basic color there. Now, like I said, eventually these are going to kind of fade out. And these figures here, whoops, these figures here are going to, let's go ahead and get that out of there. A little too much. And actually, these figures are, these figures in the foreground are going to be on separate layers. So if I slop a little paint in there, it doesn't really make a whole lot of a difference. And again, these guys are going to fade out too. What I'll probably wind up doing is putting them all on a single layer when I get toward the end. Whoops. Hey, there you go. That's why you want to make sure your lines are closed. Oh, got a little gap right there. See that? I missed that little gap. If you miss your gap, boy, you know it's going to really mess things up. All right, then let's block in some of the shaded color there. Usually I wouldn't bother with this kind of thing, but there's so much of it on this figure that I want to make sure that that I've got it sort of in there. Oh, too much. As you can see, there's a little gap right there again. So you want to make sure you don't have a gap. Of course, it's easy to fix if you do mess up. All right, there's that basic color right there. Let's okay, that's coming along. Now let's go ahead and take our backdrop and pull that back up. Okay, that's starting to look pretty cool. Okay, and these guys, these are all at about 100% right now. Okay, I think that's gonna look pretty good when it's all said and done. Now the thing is, when it's done, the pencils, you're not even gonna see the pencils. Okay, they're just not even gonna be there. So yeah, this brush thing I think gives it a nice sort of texture. Okay, let's take the backdrop back down a little bit, right about there. Okay, and let's go back to. Let's see, we need this guy. Okay, now, I think what I'm going to do for him is use that as a basic color right there. And this as sort of a backdrop color, sort of the back color. Main thing here is that medallion he's wearing. So I'm going to need to think about that too, because that's going to be tricky to paint. Not too much of an issue, but it's going to be a little bit of something. Okay, so let's go ahead and just put in, oops, undo pencil. High Priest. Now that's the thing. It's really easy to kind of forget what layer you're on sometimes. That's why I always the layers. I always label them, I should say. So I always label those things, and you can see right here if you stick with the if you got a guideline there, it's going to want to force you to go along the guideline. So that kind of looks a little messy there, but as long as I got my trap closed, I should be okay. I can just drop that in there, and we'll just put in a little bit of this color here. Now the nice thing too is because these figures are overlapping each other, I can just color in and I can go behind this mummy guy, and you know it's gonna be fine. You're not gonna even see that. I think what I need to do though is I need to grab this this orange color and put in a little more here while I'm at it. Again, this is going to be adding a lot more, you know, browns and things like that to give them, you know, and highlights and things like that to get the right kind of shade going on. I'm going to throw in a little bit of this this color here, like there and there. And again, all this stuff is going to get blended later on. All right. Matter of fact, while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and grab a little bit of that color there, and I'm going to fill in a little bit of eye color here, just so it doesn't look quite so weird. Okay, and then there. That's. I am going to now. Hopefully, you get the idea about laying in block color. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn the recording off for a little bit and work a little bit further on laying in some other blocks of color throughout the thing, and turn this thing back on when it's all pretty much blocked in and ready to go. Okay? Talk to you in a few. Okay, back again. Now, as you can see, I've blocked in most of the color that I'm gonna be using in this. These are just the basic colors, like I said. Will have to be blended more later on. Okay, now I'm going to click back on my backdrop here and put the opacity all the way back up again and see how that is shaping up. Okay, that's looking pretty decent. Now, eventually, what I might have to do is get rid of some of this stuff down here, maybe have that fade off a little bit so you can see a defined foreground. What I would probably do with something like that is use a really big eraser to kind of fade it off or something like that. But so far, you know, it's not looking too bad. If you take off the pencils, that's the basic color that you have starting out. Like I said, these are just color blocks. Okay, this is just, you know, starting out stuff, and you can see the color's a little more well defined. The color block's a little more well defined without the pencils there. Eventually, the pencils will be taken away entirely. Again, at this point, you're just using them as a guide. Okay. All right. So that's the next big thing is blocking in your color. Okay. So remember, the basic steps is are to take your pencil layer, set the pencil layer to multiply so it's transparent, and then start building up layers of color beneath that, okay? Because you want to be able to see your pencils while you're painting, all right? It's a pretty important thing. I'm going to go ahead and hit Save As, And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as yet another version here. Gotta save as pencils, but I'll probably paint. There we go. Cover painting. We'll call this cover painting 1. Probably over the course of time, I'll be making a lot of different variations on it. A lot of different versions. So, and that's always a good idea too, is to have different versions. So if you go down sort of a, I don't know if I want to say artistic rabbit hole, you've got something you can go back to. That's always a good idea to have different versions that you can always refer back to. Okay. All right. I will catch you guys next time. Be cool.